Hello and welcome to a special edition of the In the Money Players podcast. It's not even really an edition of the podcast. It's a special live stream that will then become a podcast. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatow. Very happy to be with you here in the Brooklyn bunker, getting ready to head down to Maryland. And we've got a crack team to go over the Pick 5 on this Saturday Preakness Day card. I'll introduce the panel, starting with the man wearing the same shirt as me. Now, how embarrassing. You always worry about this when you've got a cool new shirt that somebody's going to, bust your spot and bring the same thing to the party. But I guess in this case, it is a bit forgivable because he designed the shirt. He is my podcast partner, Jonathon Kinchen. Who wore it better?
Look, I normally would be very upset about having the same shirt on as someone else. It's giving me nightmares. I try not to have the same shoes, same shirt as anyone else. I've been known to leave a place and change if that happens. But I guess it's okay if it's like my shirt and you're wearing it. It works for me.
Where can you get this baby? It wasn't on the website the last time I looked. Is it a Preakness only thing?
Yeah, some of them are tricky. We didn't actually sell this one, so we sold it to First and Stronach and the Preakness. So I think you have to get it either from their website or on track. We do have like a cool weather vane shirt we did that's on our website, oldsmokeclothing.com/JK. We did like a weather vane shirt. You can access that one there, but the Black Eyed Susan, I think you're gonna have to get it on track or through the Preakness.
The iconic Pimlico weather vane. Use the promo code in the money for free shipping on that. The next person I bring in is going to be, she can be smug from time to time, and she's going to be extra smug on this appearance, I predict, because she's absolutely kicking our butts in our Triple Crown / Kentucky Derby draft. She had not only the winner Mage and the third place finisher Angel of Empire, but she's got some live bullets firing in the Preakness as well. You know her from her fantastic work on the Santa Anita simulcast feed and various other network television appearances. She's Michelle Yu. What's up, Michelle?
Well, I didn't get the memo to wear that, but I did wear my JK shirt.
Nice! The chalk-eating weasel makes an appearance.
So I wore that. I didn't get the memo about the Black Eyed Susan one, but I did my best.
I could see you make, as you once famously converted one of the JK shirts into something, very... we've got a very entertaining scene going on in your background. I love it.
We had a huge play date today. Actually, Tyler Bays' kids are at my house. They're kids, and my kids are like, they think they're siblings. So they're all over here and getting ready to leave.
We love it. We love it. Great stuff. Congrats on doing so well in the draft so far.
I didn't know I was winning. I'm so excited.
Yeah, Angel of Empire and Mage with you've got some national treasure in there as well. So
that feels good because then all the people that were like, "Oh, you didn't have Mage early." I could be like, "Yes, I did." Duh.
Just watch the show. Right. The next person we bring in is returning to these airwaves. Very excited to have him in his live streaming debut for In the Money Media. Very sharp guy who does tremendous work, is an excellent writer, and doing some great work with the MHBA. He is John Piassek. John, what's going on, man?
Well, Peter, there's 2 big weeks of the year here in Maryland. One is Maryland Million, and one is this one. Preakness week is always a big deal around here, but this year it's especially so, as there is, for the first time in 4 years, and for just the 4th time in the past 20 years, a Maryland bred in the Preakness in Coffee with Chris. So everyone around here is very excited about that.
No doubt about it. And Maryland breds, bit of some headlines with, Knicks Go in the last few years. And, obviously the terrific stakes program that we've covered on these airwaves. I know one of the things you guys do also is put on events honoring the history of Maryland racing. And you've got a couple of those coming up this week. We'll probably talk about it a little bit more later, but let folks know the basics. We get to do the show nice and early. It's Tuesday night with the draw coming on a Monday. So folks actually have a chance, if they're watching, to attend if they're in the area.
Yeah, for anyone who's in town, please come by the Maryland Horse Library and Education Center over in Reisterstown. It just opened last December, and so this is the first Preakness in which the center will be open. More than 5,000 volumes about all types of horse disciplines. Large meeting center, great reading area. It's a great place for any racing fan. This week, Wednesday and Thursday, we'll have a book sale and a book signing. Tomorrow, May 17th, we'll have authors Josh Pons, Alvin Stone, John Eisenberg, and Jack Gilden by to sign copies of their books. And then on Thursday the 18th at 4 o'clock, Patricia McQueen, a photographer, is going to come by. She recently published Secretariat's Legacy, a coffee table book with more than 280 photos of the great Virginia-bred Triple Crown champion. And she'll be back to talk about her stuff. It's free admission. So if you have time and you're in the area, stop by.
That sounds very cool. John Eisenberg has done a ton of great stuff over the years in the sports field. I think he was the My Guy Barbaro book a few
yes, he was. Yes.
More than a few years ago now. I'm going to the Orioles game, John, on Thursday, but with the new pace of play in Major League Baseball, there's a very good chance we'll be wrapped at about 2.5, and I'll come and join you over there for the Thursday one of these. Let's dive in and talk about these races. It's a stakes-laden card. We're going to talk about the all-stakes pick 5 starting in race number 9. We'll aim to sort of breeze through, and then we're obviously going to do a deeper dive on the Preakness. And then folks watching live, hey, if we have time at the end, and we may well, we'd love to answer some questions. Shout out to Carlos and Ruben, who have chimed in already here in the chat. Ruben, in particular, a fan of yours, Michelle. So there you go. You're just another way you can feel superior to us. But we're going to start the racing analysis part of the show with race number 9. We've got a listed stake here going 6 furlongs on the dirt and a field of 10 going postward. John, we'll keep it right with you for your thoughts on this one. Who do you think is going to win this race that kicks off the all-stakes pick 5 on Saturday?
This is a really fun race. Field of 10 filly and mare sprinters named after the greatest horse bred in Connecticut ever, Skipat. I went a lot of different ways here, kind of back and forth and back. Ended up settling on number 3, I'm the Boss of Me, trained by Greg Compton for Irad Ortiz, 4-1 on morning line. Really liked her last start at Oaklawn Park. Dueled through pretty fast fractions and pulled clear late to win by 2 1/4 lengths. Just missed her career best figure on the Brisnet scale, ran a 93 that day. She looks fast enough on paper to get to the lead from post 3. I know both Oksana and Begin have shown speed in the past, but however, I'm the Boss of Me's pace figures are a little bit better. I think you should be able to clear. One long shot I'm kind of interested in is number 5, Princess Kokachin, one of 3 horses trained, or I should say 2 horses, trained by Jerry Robb. A name that needs no introduction to anybody who follows Maryland. He's been around for a long time. He trained last year's Maryland-bred Horse of the Year, Fee Desprez, who ran 13 times last year, won 5 stakes, and is currently on a planned vacation. She'll be back in training soon. Princess Kokachin has been kind of rounding into form in her last few starts. She took the almost all of the back half of last year off. Has made 3 starts this year. Dealt with pace pressure, shook off challengers to win Prima Netta at Laurel last time. I was kind of skeptical of her going into that race. I wasn't sure that she could last on the lead, but she proved that she could, although she was kind of tiring toward the end. She's very fast. She has a strong middle kick. It's possible that she'll be able to beat I'm the Boss of Me to the early lead, and we know Hevion Toledo will be aggressive with her. No question about that. So if she gets to the rail and the front, she could open up a big lead turning for home. The only question is, can she withstand a closing punch of the closing rivals? Not sure if she can, but you'll get the right price but take that gamble.
John, hoping that speed kills here to kick things off. Michelle, let's bring you in for your thoughts on this one.
So I wound up with the same top selection, the 3, I'm the Boss of Me. I do want to point out that
Punch play for you, Michelle.
Yes. Horse is named after me, actually. I do want to point out that the number 6 horse, Gunning, is actually the half-sister to Mage. So it could be a really big day for the Dam Puka, should both those horses run well. I think that's always exciting. You know, you have the Kentucky Derby winner and then his older sister's running in a stake earlier on before the Preakness. So I think that's fun. For my longer priced horse that I was looking at, I thought that the 9 was worthy of a glance. Olivia Darling for Jorge Delgado. She's turning back in distance, which I like. Her 6 furlong races have been especially productive. And even though caliber-wise, she might not line up, I feel like Jorge does a really good job. He's going to be able to tab Jose Ortiz for this, and she seems to be training really well. He's also 30% off the layoff, a number that I like to see there. So for me, I was going to use her along with I'm the Boss of Me And I wouldn't steer too far from Oksana, the one horse, if I'm playing exotics of any type. She did finish behind Princess Kokachin last time out, but she's the horse I feel like always picks up a lot of pieces. I wouldn't use her on top, but I wouldn't leave her off of any of my exactas.
I'll just chime in because we have some overlap here. I think Gunning is very interesting, especially underneath in the spot after trying to close in a slower paced mile race the last day. If it really heats up front, and it might, I feel like Gunning could come running and make that story one that you can bet on, especially underneath in exotics. I did put the 2 Begin on top. Really impressed with the last run, attacking the pace and just getting beaten by a perfect trip lone closer that day in Betsy Blue in a race that's come back strong. I'm hoping this horse can hold position from the inside and show her stuff. Ran for a while last year in the Black-Eyed Susan and may have just found her game sprinting. JK, let's bring you in for the final thought on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I only need 3 horses in here. I mean, I think when you look at these listed stakes races, one of the biggest narratives to me when they're going from track to track is Lasix, no Lasix. And Begin is one that I do want to make sure I have. She seems like she's a new horse since switching trainers. She has got that big run 2 back with Lasix. She ran well last time without it. Now she's back. Oh, excuse me, she's not with Lasix. So I don't think she necessarily needs it. But I do think that she does have some tactical speed. I'm the boss of me. Completely agree with everyone else. I'll use her. But my top choice, and he'll be the 7, Edie Meeny Miny Mo, who really kind of looks like a Lasix type. If you look through her last couple of runs, her 2 big performances have been with Lasix. Last time she got tired late, but she had a ton of early speed. She's speed drawn outside. A lot of these racetracks in Maryland, I just feel like kind of being away from the rail can sometimes be advantageous. I'll pick her on top. Like I said, I only need 3 in here, the 2, the 3, and the 7.
All right.
And I must chime in. I'm sorry.
Please.
I must chime in. Edie Beady Mighty Mo is also a Maryland bred, one of 3 in this field.
Oh, very good. We got to get the Maryland bred name check for each one of these races, John. I did
that on purpose. I'm just kidding. I didn't notice it.
Let's pivot.
Pay attention. It's like they pop out.
You got to. Race 10 is the Jim McKay Turf Sprint Stakes. We're going the flat 5 here. Looks like tons of speed signed on and a full field of 12. JK, always consider you a bit not a turf sprint specialist handicapper because you've obviously you pick favorites in all the different class levels. But I'm very curious to hear what you have to say about this one because I do think you have a knack for coming up with good opinions in turf sprints.
Yeah, I mean it's a big field, and I think that there's one of my weapons I like to try to use is a lot of people I think spread in these races because there always seems to be some speed. So people have a hard time locking on to speed, but they also have an easy time locking on to closers. And I think in those situations, you end up using a lot of horses you don't need. I only need 2 horses in here, and I feel extremely confident that one of these 2 is going to win. It's either going to be the 1 nothing better, who I thought was extremely impressive at Aqueduct going 6, which might be a little bit too far. Now cuts back after skipping the race at Churchill. And then the 10 Coppola, who ran an unbelievably fast race last time for Dale Romans. Speed drawn outside. You get a Hall of Famer in Johnny Velasquez who's going to stay out of the way. I don't care if they go fast. I think one of these 2 will go fast and keep running. I have no use for any closers in here. If they win, they beat me. I'm only going to use the 2 in here, the 1 and the 10, and the 10 will be my top choice.
I will piggyback because I have the same 2 numbers just in the other order and not a whole lot to add. Just looked like nothing better. Had the chance to be that best speed from the rail. What a rich vein of form. This one's found at 6, just a half length or so, maybe even less from going for the 5 Pete. And then Coppola. What a race at Churchill that was, despite not breaking great and finding trouble. This is an improving 4-year-old who fits on all the figures in known form. Just has to work out a trip, not just for fans of The Conversation and Tucker. Got to get the pop culture references in there. Okay, maybe I could have said not just for fans of The Godfather if I wanted to be a little less obscure, but that wouldn't be on brand at all, would it? Michelle, let's bring you back in. Alex, another one of your fans, is chiming in the chat. Who do you like in the Jim McKay?
I mean, I feel just like a JK piggybacker right now because I see this race same way. I was looking for the fastest horse, right? I mean, that was what I wanted to see. And to me, I thought nothing better was the quickest of the quick. He gets the rail draw, so he's just going to go out there and send city. So for me, I like nothing better on top. I could use a whole slew of horses underneath him, but if we're just strictly talking about a winner, for me, it was nothing better. I could make a case for a whole bunch of them underneath. And I do want to also just give a little thumbs up and a high for the 8 Grateful Breds trained by one of my best friends ever, Madison Myers. We went to college together.
Awesome.
And she's just, trains mostly breaks babies, but trains a few of her own. But Grateful Bred's been really great to her. He's a 7-year-old Maryland bred, and he's just a really cool customer. I don't know how he's going to stack up against some of these horses in here, but he certainly has my heart as far as a rooting interest goes.
Not too far out of it on the form, I wouldn't say. Were there any others, Michelle, you wanted to name check as ones you might be throwing in that exacta with nothing better?
I mean, I think the Artemis City Limits is certainly worthy of a play. He gets a turn back in distance off the layoff, off good ground in the Shakertown last time. We can pretty much draw a line through that, because if you do, he's a really consistent performer, but he picks up more checks than he does and, takes pictures. So for me, he was just a horse to use underneath. Not saying he couldn't jump up and win, but I just wouldn't spread my money too thin if that's where I was going to go. Another underneath horse, I thought the 5 Smokin' Jay for Kelsey Danner. Again, last time out, some of these Keeneland races, I'm just like kind of chucking if the horses didn't run well there and looking back on previous form. So for me, another one would be Smokin' Jay under.
All right, John, let's bring you in. Can we make it a chorus for nothing better?
Kind of. I think Coppola is he is my single in the sequence. I'm going to use just Coppola because, as we talked about, he is getting much better ever since he went to grass. I loved his last start. He had a bit of traffic trouble on the turn. Once he got clear, though, he kicked away and won pretty impressively. He should sit just off the pace. He's drawn to the outside. So hopefully he'll manage to stay out of trouble and have a clear path late, as noted by Michelle. Grateful Bred is a Maryland bred, so I'll be cheering for him. Also, Nothing Better, who was my second choice, did run a big race last time out. Also ran a big race to win the Aqueduct Turf Sprint Championship towards the end of last year. He has those Mid-Atlantic connections with Colts Neck Stables, Jorge Duarte and Horatio Caramanos in the saddle. One horse who has not been mentioned yet, who I kind of like, is number 13, Beer Can Man, for Phil D'Amato and Flavian Trot. This one made his first start off more than a year layoff last time out at Keeneland, acted up a bit in the gate, settled down, ran on well late, lost by only 2 lengths. Not a bad race for his first start in so long. His form from early 2022 probably at least contends in here at near his 8-1 morning line with Flavian in the saddle. He's at least worth a look at. I think Artemis City Limits is going to be too low a price to use in the pick 5 off such a bad race last time. I know it was his first start of the year. But still, and also, don't forget, Ben's Cat won this race 4 years in a row, from 2013 to 2016.
Beer Can Man's got a shot in here. I'm not really thrilled with his draw.
It ain't easy out there. That might be, outside isn't necessarily bad going the one turn, but that might be a little far. But those are great notes. I mean, 28 days now after being off for 426 and second start as a gelding. I can see that one as I squint for one to maybe be a stinger in a bet like the pick 5, at least on some backup lines. But let's proceed to race number 11. We've got graded stakes action, grade 3 Maryland Sprint. We're going 6 furlongs. We've got a field of 10, and Michelle will give you the honor of starting on this one.
For me, this race is straight no chasers race to lose. Looking at it, I think from a caliber standpoint, we didn't get maybe as many of the big name sprinters in here as you would like to have. So if you look at straight no chasers last race, he was dazzling. I know it was just an allowance race, but I love the way he did it. Even when you go back to races like the Malibu and the Palos Verdes, he was flying up there on the front end. Legitimately, at one point in the Malibu, when they turned for home, I thought, holy cannoli, straight no chaser is going to win this, right? He obviously didn't have the class to hang on against Haiba and Forbidden Kingdom, but he tried really hard that day. So I think that the distance suits him. I know that Dan's been pointing for this race with him. I just think that he is the fastest horse in here, point blank.
The old fastest horse angle, and this was the one that I came up with on top as well. Though I did have one question, and JK, this was a point you brought up in a previous race, so I'll bring it up with you here. Does it bother you? Does it concern you that straight no chaser, as impressive as he was last time, that was done, on an easy lead and with the benefit of Lasix, or was he the horse to beat for you as well?
It doesn't bother me at all. I mean, I think if you look at the Malibu, he went extremely fast going 7 against a superior horse in Taiba. So I think he ran well. I don't think it was a Lasix thing why he stopped, and he stopped because he went really fast going 7 and he got ran down by a monster. And I feel the same way about the Palos Verdes. I think those horses, he went fast. and he just got beat. I don't think that that's an issue. And I think he's so much more superior than the horses he's facing in here today. This will be my single. He ran a really fast number at Oaklawn, and there's been 3 horses that have come back in that race. Ruggs ran faster than he ran in that speed figure that day. Chip Off the Old Block, run faster. And then I can't read my own handwriting, something Philly. Something that starts with S. I don't know these horses in that race. But basically the point is that when you have a fast number, sometimes I question it until I see horses run out of that race. And if horses run out of that race and run faster, it makes me believe that number, because if you know anything about speed figures, they're all connected. Between first and fifth place are connected mathematically. So if the first figure is right, then the fifth figure is probably right. And so if those 3 behind Straight No Chaser were right, Straight No Chaser is an ice cold single for me. I won't have anyone else on any other ticket.
Wow. So no backups at all for you here.
Not one.
All right. I thought that one other horse to throw in for me.
The outside.
10, wonder where Craig is. I mean, this horse, the form's heading back in the right direction. Absolutely loves it around here. And it just feels like a spot that's been picked out for a long time by connections, having this horse maybe ready to peak second time off the layoff. On pace figures, this horse might even be able to lead, but the better trip might be stalking Straight No Chaser. And if Straight No Chaser, if we don't get to cue the jazz piano with that one coming in, maybe Wonder Where Craig is can get the job done. But John, we need to hear from you on this one. Nobody has mentioned Nakatomi yet. David Barista in the comments is a Nakatomi fan. I was thinking as a closer, maybe one we could try to oppose as the favorite, but where do you land?
Well, I am really glad everyone has brought up Straight No Chaser, because he fits in right with what I'm trying to say. I did pick him second. I think he has a good shot. But if you look at just the raw numbers, like the raw speed and the raw pace figures, there's not much separating him and number 4, Al Loves Josie. And Al Loves Josie is going to be 3 or 4 times the price. I think that last race of Al Loves Josie, who is a Maryland bred, who is named in honor of one of the co-owners, Carl Ionade's parents were named Alan Josie, because the name comes from.
Nice.
I think that last race is going to throw off a lot of bettors because it looks terrible. I mean, he was no factor in the Frank Whiteley, but he had an awful break. He got completely bounced around at the start. Once he got settled, he really had nowhere to go, and he was well beaten. I am willing to toss the race out completely. If you do so, he's in much improved form. He ran 2 big races against Allowance Company over the winter at Lowell, won by 3.5 lengths in a pretty solid second level allowance off-road claiming race, stepped up to third level horses next time out, had to come off the pace that day, which was not quite what he was used to, but he still kicked away and turned in another nice 3.5 length win. He's going second off a brief layoff. As long as he breaks, I think he has a great chance.
I'll tell you what, at the price that Al Loves Josie is going to be, no doubt double figures. We've got the Bruno Mars concert later on Saturday, but it might be an early call for Julio to get the stretch, because you'll be sitting on some tickets if we can get that thing in. Let's say hello to some other people in the comments. Hello to Brian, to Affirmed, to Jim, and to Tom for putting some stuff in the comments. The pace we're going at, we probably will have time for questions. Probably best to wait till we get to that part of the show before you ask them, so they're not buried, because we've got a lot of people chiming in here. But in the meantime, we're going to move on to race number 12, where we've got the James W. Murphy. We're going the 1 mile on the turf. We've got a field of 9 and a heavy favorite on the morning line in Nagarock. John, I'll ask you what I think might be the key question in this one. Are you with or against the favorite?
I am against him, because I think there's a lot of horses in here who have pretty similar form and are going to be much lower odds. In fact, I am not planning on using him in my pick 5 at all. I think he's going to be used on a lot of tickets, could be some singles, and if I can beat him, it'll make the payout that much sweeter. And I bounced around quite a bit in this race. I picked 3 different horses on top at one point. I ended up landing on number 8, Wonderful Justice, for Brad Cox, and Luis Saez. He's another horse who I think his odds are going to be inflated by his last start, where he had a valid excuse. He looked good in his first 2 starts, broke his maiden at Fairgrounds coming off the pace, sat another good trip, won the Black Gold Stakes by a neck in a pretty game effort, They got kind of knocked around at the start in the Transylvania. He was not able to get his usual spot near the front, and as such, he didn't run as well. He ended up getting beaten by 8.5 lengths, really no factor. Since then, he's had quite a few good workouts, including a bullet drill at Keeneland on May 13th. He won 4 furlongs in 47-2, the fastest of 76 times. That bullet certainly means a lot more than it might in other cases. Think he should stay out of trouble with fewer horses in the field, and if he gets his trip at a 5-1 morning line, he's pretty interesting.
I think it's an interesting idea. Any other numbers to come with? Or are you all about trying to get a little separation there?
I like Fantastic again. I think he looks like the main speed. I think he's faster than a Western Yarn early on, and he could get loose for Johnny Velasquez and Wesley Ward. And at number 5, circling the drain, a Maryland bred in the field, trained by Brittany Russell for Heavy on Toledo. Won pretty impressively at Lowell 3 starts back on the dirt, making his grass debut. He has not dissimilar form to Joe, who had raced mostly on dirt last year, switched to the grass for the Murphy, and ended up winning as a Maryland bred. Will lightning strike twice? It's possible. And each one, I think I have used it.
JK, I know you had a good pull on circling the drain, so we'll bring you in. Is he your top pick, and what was the case?
Yeah, top pick. I actually, man, this Preakness pick 5 is very straightforward to me. It's unlike the Derby. Like Derby Day was a nightmare outside of Cody's Wish. I couldn't figure out half of those races. You had to use lots of different things. I think all you need here is the 1, 5, and the 9, and the 5 will be my top choice. This horse has got some siblings that have tried the grass. This horse hasn't. Maryland Mo, maiden special weight winner on the grass. Comfy and Cozy, winner on the grass. Daddy's Cozy, 4-time winner on the grass. Magnum Opus didn't win, but ran a very good third in one of the fast figures that horses ever run. I call that like a winning turf race. Who's in Town, won on the grass, and Campaign's Vows, run on the grass. Every sibling who's run on the grass has won. So this horse is going to probably run well on the grass. And
that's
so I'll
good
make sure
stuff.
to use those. I don't really need anyone else. Like I said, I think the rest of them are just a cut below. And those are the only 3 that I'll use.
I like similar horses to you, JK. I put Fantastic again on top. Well-drawn, turf blood there. Unusual look for a Wesley Ward horse, but just seems very dangerous with the Lasix second time off the layoff after that solid stakes run at Turfway. Nagarok, I admire John's boldness in wanting to oppose, but I think the form and figures and talent that one showed, I've got to have on some tickets. That form was franked by Web Slinger in that Derby undercard race. One wacky one I am going to throw in that I wanted to at least name check here is the 7 runner, Kingfish Stevens. I thought this horse attended a fast pace in a race that collapsed late, and I thought could just maybe do better with a more even run. That last race, I know it was just a starter allowance. I know this one's going to be tested for class, but at least 3 winners have come out of that one. And I think this horse could get a good setup, probably more for underneath, but I'm going to have a little bit of 7 in there. Michelle, let's bring in you to that cleanup for us and knock this thing out of the park.
For me, I liked Fantastic again on top. I put him over Nagarok. I wouldn't leave off Nagarok because he is a really consistent horse, but again, not in love with where he's drawn. And I just think that he's a beatable horse because I feel like he's that horse that runs a lot of good races and then just gets beat with not a lot of excuses. So looking at both of them, I had 2 price horses that I'm going to fiddle with some way or another. The 2, Fade the Noise for Mike Maker, has been sprinting, and the last couple have not been great since breaking the maiden. But one of them, he went to the sidelines after, and the other one was off the layoff, again, one of those Keeneland races, and he didn't break good, and they were both sprinting. He gets to go a route of ground for the first time. He's by Mendelssohn out of a Stay Thirsty mare. To me, it just said, go ahead and stretch me out, and this is the kind of race I feel like Mike Maker can win. And the 3, A Western Yard for Arnaud Delacour. I thought his last race at Tampa was okay. Mustache, the horse that ran second, did come back to win that stake over at Keeneland. So, I think the form line holds up well. I don't necessarily know if he's as quick as Fantastic again, but if he's not, I think he sits a really lovely trip. And I just think that, second time really for the year going with some recency, he can do something at 10-1.
Some good thoughts on some prices to include there for sure. All right, we're up to the big one. The Grade 1 Preakness, 1 3/16, of course. Just the field of 8. And on paper, I'll be honest, I'm seeing it kind of as a match between number 3 Mage and number 8 First Mission. Michelle, we're going to start you in this one. Is it as simple as a match between those two? And if so,
Yes, I think it comes down to those two horses right now. Could something absolutely bonkers happen? Sure, but on paper it doesn't appear to be that way. I think that National Treasure breaks. I think that he should go out front. He's been training really sharply since returning to Bob Baffert's barn. They're going to have blinkers on, but the whole reason I drafted him in our fantasy draft PTF is because I think he's going to win the Belmont. I think here he's going to take too much pace pressure from the 4 horse, and he's probably going to get a little bit leg weary because I don't think that he's a very brave horse who likes to take a lot of pressure. I think he needs a lonely lead. I think at that point, Mage shouldn't be so far back as long as he breaks out of the gate within a somewhat of a timely fashion. And we know First Mission's going to be sitting right there just breathing down his throat, right? So they're going to turn for home. National Treasure is going to not want to go on. Here comes First Mission. Then here comes Mage. And the two of them are going to kind of go on around it. If I pick up a horse to pick up some pieces, it's either going to be Perform or Red Route 1. But I'm really hit and miss on Red Route 1 and probably going to end up using Perform on the bottom side of some exotics, but not anywhere near the top slot, which I think belongs to the 2 key players.
Well, I'd be accused of a host fail for sure. I already see the host fail accusations coming in the comments here for not holding your feet to the fire, Michelle. You can't just say it's one of those 2. You got to pick a winner for them.
Well, I'm going to stick with Mage. If I have to pick the 2, I'm going to stick with Mage.
It does seem like an interesting race to maybe mess around in a bet like, I don't play a lot of cold supers, but it might be kind of a fun race to take that approach and just try to lock this in and pick the race if you have some stronger opinions underneath. And one thing I thought was notable, Michelle, about your picks is staying away from the second and for the third and fourth choices. That could open up some value in a bet like the Try or the Super. JK, how about you? Where are you going to go in this year's Preakness?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where I want to get creative. I mean, I think Mage is what he did in the Derby was impressive, and you have to respect it. I'm not crazy about horses that win from 16, 17 out of it. I think that circumstances have to kind of fall in your lap again. I do think Mage can be a little bit closer, but when I look at his best performance and I say that, it was a race that he came from out of it, so far out of it, you have to think that maybe that's his best scenario. I hope he wins. Selfishly, Fox has the Belmont, and it'd be fun if we had a Triple Crown the first year that we have it. So I'm obviously rooting for my friend Ramiro as well. But First Mission, Pete, we did that Preakness future wager, and a lot of people that were on the show picked First Mission. So that would be a lot of fun to get that First Mission money back for everybody. And I think he's probably going to end up being long-term, like who I want, come the end of August at Saratoga. It would be a First Mission type for me. But I will not be beat by National Treasure. He's a horse that has numbers as a 2-year-old that are within reach of what everyone else has kind of been running until their last start, right? So First Mission popped up last time in Lexington, ran a much faster number. And Mage too. But at one point, National Treasure was running numbers that those horses were running at 3. So why can't he take another step forward? And this is kind of like Baffert's race. He's going to be aggressive. He's got nothing to lose. He's going to send National Treasure away from there. And let's just say First Mission doesn't want to go that far. The National Treasure inherits the lead and Mage has trouble, or they don't go too fast. And National Treasure just wins by default. He's a horse that I will definitely use in a race that does feel like, Michelle said, you said, is a 2-horse race. I think it is a 2-horse race, but I think another horse can win, if that makes any sense.
JK busting out the silver wig on the Preakness show. I love it.
But my official pick will be First Mission. However, I think that it's a race that I'm not getting beat by any of those horses.
I get it. I mean, Baffert has won the race, 6 times? Grade me your A's and B's here, JK.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to probably use them all as A's. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I think there's going to be so much value in having National Treasure. I'm okay with kind of letting them creep into the A line. I don't feel like I'm being wasteful there. And especially the way that I'm approaching the sequence with a single with Straight No Chaser, going too deep in the turf sprint, and then only going, I think, if I'm not mistaken, like 3 horses in the other 2. So I'm not worried about my equity getting funny, where I'm going to be frustrated that these favorites win and I don't have it enough. I'll have it enough if it comes all favorite. I'll have it enough because I don't have that many combinations. I'm not wasting a bunch of combinations on 12-1 shots that I don't think can win.
You do not, you don't have to worry too much when you're as thin.
JK said that, and he was looking at me when he said that.
So you think he was shot at some?
That's something I would totally do. I'm like, no, I gotta chuck this like 80-1 shot in just because.
I didn't even know you were on the show.
I have a full write-up of this race over at theraces.com. I go through them all, but the TLDR on my piece for this is, I think the way they're going to bet it, I think First Mission is going to be the horse that I want most of. Mage is right there. And I think, and we'll talk about some of these other contenders at more length. We'll do a whole second round on this race before we get to questions. But I think Red Route 1 is interesting to be that horse to come third or fourth, just based on the way the trips are going to work out. And I think it's an interesting race to maybe mess around with the super. So mostly going to be rooting for that Preakness future bet. If the morning line was an actual betting line, I'd be betting Mage all day. But I'm pretty sure Mage is going to be odds on or evens. And I'm pretty sure that's going to make First Mission 5-2, 3-1, something like that. And that's how I'm going to play it. But John, we got to bring you in for this one. And first, I'm going to ask you just your general overview of the race, and then we'll start off round 2 on this race. We're going to talk very specifically about Coffee with Chris, unless, of course, he's your pick in this race. Who do you like to win the Preakness?
Well, I'm not sure if Mage is going to be odds on. With the disclaimer, Twitter is not real life. I have seen a lot of hype.
Let's hope not, John. Let's hope.
About First Mission. I've seen a lot of hype about First Mission on social media, and I feel like he could end up going off at like 2-1 or 5-2 and eat up a lot of money.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah, he is kind of like the wise guy horse of this year's Preakness. I feel like everybody used to avoid new shooters, and now in the past 2 years, everyone's kind of gone in the opposite direction, and they might be kind of overhyping new shooters. So I think he has a shot. I am going to use him in my pick 5, but I could not bet him to win. My thing about Mage is, I think people in their hype about this race and kind of quest to find other horses is Mage won the Derby, and he beat a much better field than anyone else in this race has ever faced. He ran well in the Florida Derby too. He made a nice move at the back of the pack. Of course, ended up losing before Ted. No shame in that. He's getting better with every start, I think. And if you just toss out everyone's names and look only at the running lines and at the numbers, I think almost everyone would settle on Mage, and I am as well. My only concern with him is he came from way off the pace in both the Derby and the Florida Derby. I think Javier knows better. I hope he knows better. I hope he does not try to win it from 16 lengths off the pace again, because I don't think you'll be able to do that with this pace. Because I know there's some horses who are going for the front, but there's really no like proven front runners in here. Only horses who we speculate are going to go for the early lead. Like First Mission and National Treasure, while I think they'll both be near the front, they don't have a lot of ones in the running lines. So there's a possibility that if Javier gets a little too cute and Mage falls too far behind, he could leave himself with too much to do.
It's not unreasonable. I mean, that was on my list of extra questions to ask, was what trip is Mage going to get? We'll get there. But while we're on, we'll sort of start round 2 with a Coffee with Chris question for you, John. I was thinking the decision to go to this race, I felt like they got to send. I mean, I feel like that just seems like the way that this horse could win. Now, I know National Treasure to me, I hear what you're saying, John, about the ones and the lack thereof, but adding blinkers from the rail, I mean, I feel like he's got to go. And I feel like Coffee with Chris, I mean, to me, needs to go right with him. I think that's going to allow a beautiful toe into the race for First Mission, a lot like the Lexington. But let's get some perspective on how good you think Coffee with Chris is. I mean, is he here? What is their goal in here to have a win or go home mentality, or is it to just get a good race in the Preakness and hear the name called and get to experience the day? What is your take on Coffee with Chris, generally speaking, in this spot?
Well, first of all, just a little background on his pedigree. He was bred by Tom Rooney, who is the president of the NTRA.
Your
His
boy,
family has
J.K.
Yes, his family has owned Shamrock Farm over in Woodbine, Maryland, for more than 7 decades. And this horse's pedigree includes 7 generations of Rooney homebreds. The
That's
sire
cool.
of his 5th dam, Molly, was Christopher R., who was the Maryland-bred Horse of the Year in 1975. So this horse is as Maryland as it gets. I mean, like if you cut him open, he'd be bleeding red, yellow, and black. Like he's pure Maryland. Purchased for $2,000 at the Basic Tipton Atlantic Fall yearling sale in October 21 by John Salzman Jr., whose dad trained Extra Heat, John Salzman Sr.
Yep.
And John Jr. is kind of like the Wesley Ward of Maryland in that he likes buying young sprinter types and winning a lot of early season 2-year-old races. Like he won the first 2 races of Maryland 2-year-old season, for example. And I asked him about this, and he had the same plan with Coffee with Chris. He debuted him very early. He broke his maiden on May 12th of last year. And I asked John about this horse after he won the heft. I was kind of probing, like, do you think maybe Derby Preakness? And he told me he at the time he thought he was only a sprinter. He thought like maybe he'll go 1 turn mile, but he stretched out to a 1 turn mile and he won. He stretched out around 2 turns. He ran well. He came in second. Stretched out to a mile and an 8th in the Tessio. Did not run badly. He set the pace and held in game and lost by 2.5 lengths in a blanket finish.
Yeah, that was falling apart too.
Yeah, I think top 7 had to covered by 3 lengths. He held it pretty well. So he's answered every question of him so far. He's a hard-trying horse. I was talking to John about him earlier in the week, and he said he doesn't want to be on the lead, but he's not opposed. Like if National Treasure doesn't break for some reason and Coffee with Chris gets to the front, he says that's fine. But he would like to be, I think, just to his outside, or maybe like just off him toward the rail, like if maybe National Treasure and First Mission go at it. And if those two do end up burning each other out, Coffee with Chris will get first crack. He's also being ridden by Jamie Rodriguez, who has ridden him in his last 5 starts. Of course, Jamie had an incredible winter meet at Lowell in March. He was winning at about a 40% clip. He's been riding well ever since, and although not that strong. I can't say Coffee with Chris has a good chance to win, but I am very happy that John Salzman is taking the shot. I think he deserves to take the shot. He's been in good form all winter long. And it's great to have a local rooting interest in this race. It's very good for the industry here.
He'll be getting a call. That is my prediction for sure. Michelle, you've done such good jobs on these shows in the past, talking about what trips various horses are going to get in various spots. What trip do you think Mage is going to get? Is he going to be able to show the speed that he had back on that debut run, or has he evolved, as JK was maybe suggesting he has, into this sort of deeper closer that could leave him, maybe with a little bit more to do than would be ideal?
I actually don't think that he has evolved into a deep closer. I think that he has been a victim of his own doing in the last couple of outs where he just hasn't been sharp from the gate or gotten away cleanly. And that was my biggest worry about him in the Derby was he going to absolutely lose his cool with everything going on and cause him to do something really dumb pre-race that would hinder him in the gate. That's why I said I think he can be forwardly placed if he breaks. So I can't predict if he's going to break or not. But if this horse breaks sharp, I think he's going to be within 4 lengths. I mean, he's not going to be back there. I would say he's closer. I'd love to see him get like a nice solo warm up where Javi's like, hey, yo, pay attention. Let's figure this out and let's get going and, get him in there and get him woke up and warmed up instead of kind of diddly daddling with the pony or paying attention to other things. Like I want to see him bent over and doing something. Yeah.
I mean, you got to figure he's going to be so sharp coming back off the 2-week rest. I mean, the 2-week rest, trainers sometimes talk about like it's some thing to overcome, but history shows it can really sharpen a horse up and really bring a horse forward even. And coming out of the fastest race, I mean, you look at the time form US pace plot in here, JK, and this horse just isn't nearly as far back as you would think. So maybe that's maybe that is a reasonable thing, that he is going to be able to be much closer in this spot. Anything else for you on Mage, JK? I do want to pivot also and talk to you about Blazing Sevens.
No, I mean, I do think that, like you said, the 2 weeks, I don't think it's a negative. I think it's a positive. I mean, that's why I think so many horses have had success going from the Derby to the Preakness. I think that if you ran well 2 weeks ago and you're sound, you're probably going to run well again today because there hasn't been an opportunity for something to change. And you're facing the same group of horses. You're going basically the same distance. Like, you kind of get the same result. The only thing different, I think, is that Mage did get a little bit of a pace setup. So what's going to happen, here? Blazing Sevens, I mean, I don't really see it. I think people are seeing early voting last year and Chad's decision to skip with early voting and show up. And I don't think Blazing Sevens is necessarily that horse. I know he showed some talent early, but I wasn't overly impressed with his last race. Maybe he needed it, but did he really need it that much? Does he want to go this far? I think it's one of those scenarios where Chad successfully convinced, and I don't know this is not something that I know. I'm just saying Chad successfully convinced his connections to not run in the Derby, but there was no, you couldn't miss both. You had to run in one of them. And I think that he picked the better of two evils. I'm not overly convinced he'll run that well.
To that point, I think it's the right decision, right? In the sense that Blazing Sevens is going to be a lot shorter price in this race than he would have been in the Derby. But at the end of the day, for me, we're looking at a horse whose claim to fame was in the slop as the lone closer in a pace meltdown, doesn't look to have trained on great. And the form of that bluegrass is just not working out with 8 to come back to run and none to have made the frame. So I share the cynicism there. There's another horse that I think, we've heard some buzz about. The morning line of 15-1 still might be right, but certainly a horse to at least think about for underneath. And we'll get back to a race that John mentioned moments ago in the Tessio stake. The horse that took advantage and won there was Perform. And he had a very tricky trip and really wasn't able to be unleashed until late. So now normally there's the old handicapping saw. You don't want to be chasing trips in slow races. And maybe that's what's going on with Perform's supporters. But on the other hand, I get the idea that this is a developing horse in the right hands who, it's a dangerous thing to say, but I think it's fair when you watch that Perform trip from last time, probably could have run faster if he'd been allowed clear run. It's been a minute, John, since the Tessio proved the key form line in this race. And when I say a minute, I mean maybe a couple of decades. Do you give Perform any count in here?
Yeah, the last choice to win both the Tessio and the Preakness was also the last Maryland bred who won the Preakness. Did a testimony back in 1983, and the last Maryland bred to the board of the Preakness was Magic Wisnu back in 2002. He was second in the Preakness, second in Tessio as well. The thing that's kind of interesting about Perform is he was supplemented for this race for $150,000. After the race, a few folks asked Shug if he would nominate. It sounded like he was kind of leaning to a no, but of course he changed his mind and he put up the money. I don't think they'd put up that money if they didn't think they'd get it back. Like, Shug is not the kind of person to put his horses in races just for fun.
Yep.
That being said, he is a closer. He's come from pretty far off of it to win his last 2 starts. His maiden at Tampa Bay Downs and, of course, the Tessio. Obviously, Fergal Lynch gave him a great ride in winning Tessio. He has the same problem I mentioned with Mage earlier, is that if the pace is slow, he could find himself with too much to do. And even if he is close to the pace, he could find himself outkicked by just better horses. I mean, Mage obviously much better than anyone who we saw in the Tessio. He is a classic kind of horse who, if you were playing a trifecta or superfecta and you want to key somebody in 3rd or 4th, couldn't blame it if wanted it to be him.
I think I'll probably leave him in there, with my superfecta idea being that if National Treasure runs the way that Michelle and I think is going to happen, he could run out easily. And then, we sort of made the case for Blazing Sevens not necessarily having to hit the top 4. Somebody's got to run 3 and 4. If it's Red Route 1 and Perform, even with the top 2 in there, I think you might be able to eke out a little bit of equity. We've got a few more minutes here. We've already got some great questions. We encourage folks to drop some more in the comments. Here's a real easy one. Will any of you be in Baltimore for the races? I will be. I'm going to try to get this shirt clean so I can wear it again with a sport coat. Michelle, will you be working on the what will your work responsibilities be?
I don't know. So I will be there. I'm going on Thursday. Actually, I'm going to be situated in this like loungy tent area, and I'm going to be helping people wager. And myself and Zoe Cadman are going to be doing like kind of like I don't want to say like a seminar, but like mini beginner handicapping in between each of the races and like pointing out people like how to play a little bit.
Similar to what we did at the Pegasus, it sounds like.
Yes, exactly.
And so if people wanted to get like involved in that, where do they go? Like, where do they need to buy their tickets?
I don't know.
We'll send out a tweet about that.
I'll find out for you, and I'll tweet it out.
We'll take care of it. Hello to Bedri. Hello to Steve, who's up for buying the Natty Bows. We appreciate that, though. Michelle only drinks Veuve Clicquot, so we'll have to worry about that. John, how about you? Natty Bow, National Bohemian, isn't that like a local macro?
Yes, that's the.
I've heard of Natty Ice.
Trademark. No, Natty Bow is what people drink around here. It's anything with Old Bay, with Natty Bow to wash it down. It's kind of like this most stereotypical.
Old Bay seasoning in your cocktail?
No. I'm saying like any food with Old Bay on it, and then
goes well.
Natty Bow to wash it down. Is most stereotypical Maryland thing that you can eat.
I'll have to.
Where will you be hanging? Where will you be hanging on Saturday, John?
I will be probably in Festbox a good amount of the day, counting down the minutes until Coffee with Chris runs, and sweating for a long time. I'll also be there on Friday doing the other podcasts. Check out where I'll be on at They're Off, and I'll be at the library Wednesday and Thursday. Once again, if anyone is in the area, stop by. We're at 321 Main Street in Reisterstown, and I'll also be at the ABR Preakness party tomorrow night at the Mount Washington Tavern. So if anybody wants to come by, say hi, kick me in the shins, I'll be there.
Hopefully we can avoid the latter, but yes, that's always a fun party, and I'm going to be there too. And I think there's still tickets available. Check out the America's Best Racing website for that. So now, Michelle, your resume is sort of famously impressive and interesting, but apparently there is a new line item on it: TikTok superstar. What is? I get a comment. I mean, we got something in the comments here where somebody's suggesting you might be performing with Bruno Mars. What's going on here?
Hardly. Christina Black. Okay, so Bruno Mars is going to be playing the infield at Preakness, right? We have to have a big name celebrity. And Christina Blacker did a Bruno Mars challenge where they play the songs and you have to like guess the songs, right? From like a line. So I actually do a ton of these on my TikTok, but it's generally like 90s hip hop or like something really random. And I'm really good at them. But like, I don't listen to Bruno Mars that much. I'm like a country person more, or like 90s music. But she challenged me, so I had to do it. But I think I only knew like 4 of the songs. So then I had to like push the challenge on as well.
That's pretty funny. All right, I have a serious question for you, Michelle, and this comes from In the Money's own Michael Domable. So these National Treasure works in the blinkers. Mm-hmm. I think you alluded to this. How much of an improvement are they from the Actine works, and even when he was with Baffert before? In Michael's opinion, he thought the last work looked pretty solid. What did you think?
Yeah, his last work was really solid. I actually really liked his first work with the blinkers, which was I think 3 or 4 works back, and it was right when he returned to Baffert. He stuck him in those blinkers. So I thought he is working really solid. He is moving really effortlessly. I think when you watch back when he was with Actine without the blinkers, a rider was always just kind of like niggling him along, right? It wasn't like asking, it wasn't like whipping, but he was just kind of like always pedaling to get him to work. His last couple of works, they've been by himself with the blinkers. He has just looked really engaged, and he's looked effortless. His last drill was like in 47 and change. He galloped out like he didn't even realize he passed the wire, and he was just like, I'm going to keep going on. And he's just covering the ground beautifully. So you're naturally going to get a different workhorse from Actine to Baffert because they work their horses differently, right? And as much as people want to say like, oh, it's still a Baffert horse, like Actine takes over the training. So you'll see the workouts change. And we saw that last year when Baffert horses moved to Actine. The workout patterns changed. The times changed. I mean, horses went from working 59s every week to 101s, right? That's just the way Actine works his horses. So we did already see that. And now this horse came right back into Baffert's, got the blinkers on, and hasn't missed a beat. He has moved right along. Also, I feel like when you watch Baffert get ready for a really big race, Pete, you can see these horses really start to peak. So if you go 4 works back on National Treasure and you watch him and you watch every week, you'll see these horses getting more and more kind of in the bridle and more fit. They're ramping up. Baffert is the master of timing.
That's some truly awesome analysis. Thank you, Michael, for getting Michelle to speak at that length on that topic. It's fascinating, and I feel like you could do a whole podcast about just the differences in works and the why of it and all that. And maybe sometime we will. We have a question from Affirmed about the $100,000 Arabian race that closes the card. I doubt any of us have much to say about this.
I handicap the Arabian race.
Excellent. Well, we're going to come back to Michelle in a second for her thoughts on that. But I will also say that Marshall Graham, low key, loves to handicap the Arabians. And I will be sitting with him on Saturday, and I will either force him to tweet his thoughts or just steal his thoughts and tweet them out myself. So at Looms Boldly on Twitter, you'll get that. But meanwhile, Michelle, and I'm making you do too much talking here, but hey, you don't mind working hard. Who wins the Arabian race?
Look, I think for me, it's the 2 favorites, right? They're the horses with the class to lean on. So I like the 9 Diamond Gem. This horse is coming off a runner-up effort where he got beat by Quicksand, who's the other horse you can like, but I think he's really favorably drawn. And I think the stretch out and distance is going to work in his favor. Looking at the horse that beat him last time, Quicksand, he's kind of like a hit or miss horse. He rarely puts together back-to-back wins. So for me, I'm going to play the other horse on top, but both of those, they're the guys that have been around the block. They're the guys that are the true, level performers. So I think it's going to be hard to steer away from those 2.
Horse players take note, and JK will bring you back in to talk about this. There are a couple of 2-day pick 5s, part of some of the new wagering initiatives for this year's Preakness, not unlike the Preakness Future Wager. It's kind of cool, these 2 cross day ones. So you got one that combines the Black-Eyed Susan. Well, actually, it starts with the Hilltop on Friday, goes to the Black-Eyed Susan, and then on Saturday, the McKay Turf Sprint, the Murphy, and the Preakness itself. And low takeout on these too, which is really cool. You can find it under PIS, 12% takeout, 50-cent minimum. And then the other one, speaking of Marshall Graham and potentially JK, an all dirt 2-day pick 5. This one, PI5 is the code. That's going to be the 8th on Black-Eyed Susan Day, the Pimlico Special, the Black-Eyed Susan itself, and then the Maryland Sprint Stakes and the Preakness Stakes. JK, do you see yourself getting involved in either of those 2-day pick 5s? And do we maybe want to do a little bit of in the money plus action later in the week on one or both of those?
Yeah, no, I think we should. Yeah, I like those 2-day wagers for a couple of reasons. One, I think that you can, I'm pretty big on game selection. Obviously there's the late pick 5 where they kind of basically lay out, these are your 5 races and here you go. But sometimes there can be races within those races that you don't have strong opinions about. And sometimes these 2-day wagers can allow you to run together other opinions that you do have. You can even sometimes skip a race you don't have an opinion because it's not in that sequence. So I always like to take a look at them just to kind of get an idea of if the sequence fits me better than the traditional pick 5. We talked through this pick 5. I have a pretty strong hold, at least on my opinion of what I want to do in this pick 5. So I don't necessarily have a problem with this one, but you can always still continue to mix and match some of those other ones. And the other thing too, not to get too much in the rabbit hole here, but I have found that historically the computers stay away from the 2-day wagers. And I'm not saying they completely stay away from them, but you don't see that big flash. You don't see that big flash like you do in a traditional pick 5. And I think there's a lot of different reasons that that's the case. But I think that because of that, these opportunities can sometimes be pretty lucrative.
From a game selection point of view, these bets make sense. We'll reiterate a quick note that we made at the Breeders' Cup last year that we had a dozen people thank us for. The idea of going through all the stakes Friday, Saturday, put a grade next to the race based on how strong your opinion is. Then look for the wagers and the pools to play where you have the strong opinions. Don't just necessarily play the pick 5 by rote. Take a look. Maybe there's a better way to express that opinion. Maybe it's a double, maybe it's a pick 3, maybe it's a 2-day bet, etc. It takes 5 minutes and it can absolutely improve your return on investment. We had one note about how Mage would handle a wet track. we might not have a wet track. We'll see. They're saying PM showers for Saturday.
Always bred fine. He's going to be just fine in it. Come on now.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about it. I did want to address the weather, though, before we got out of here. But that's really all the time we have. This was so fun. The hour absolutely flew by. I want to thank John, first and foremost, and our sponsor for this one, the MHBA. You can learn so much more about them and their mission over at MarylandHorse.com. Please check that one out. Michelle, we're going to see you on Saturday. You're going to tweet where people might be able to come on in late and join you. JK, you're not going to be able to join us in Baltimore. You got some other life stuff going on, good life stuff, but we will send folks once again to the JK collection, oldsmokeclothing.com/JK, and you can find our cool t-shirts, including the one Michelle's wearing, inthemoneypodcast.com/oldsmoke. Promo code In the Money for free shipping. And if you want more of our content, if you want to support the kind of stuff we do, check out In the Money Plus, inthemoneypodcast.com/plus. That's it. That's all the plugs. That's all the time we have. Thank you to the panel once again. Thanks to the MHBA once again. Thanks to all of you for watching, listening. Really appreciate it. Thanks to our founding partners, 10 Strike Racing and the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatal. May you win all your Preakness Day photos.